Hey everyone, today I'm going to work on a hands-on demonstration of a virtual network setup that will stimulate a VoIP environment. So I will be creating two virtual machines. First, Windows virtual machines, where I'll be downloading a Cisco phone, VoIP phone, those two Windows virtual machines, and then I'll be downloading a Linux Mint virtual machine, which will act as a router. So this is the scenario we have in front of us. We have got two Windows virtual machines. Virtual machine 1, CIPC, where I'll download one from where I'll give the IP address 192.168.56.3. That's what I'll be working with. And Windows CIPC 2 virtual machine 2, which will be the following IP address. Now those virtual machines are being made in VirtualBox. So the VirtualBox has by default has an internal virtual adapter with the IP address of 192.168.56.1, which will be this VirtualBox virtual switch network. And I'll be also creating a virtual machine with the Mint operating system, Mint 18 virtual machine, which will be acting as our router. So the IP address which I'll give will be the same subnet as the two Windows virtual machine. The IP address from the virtual machine will be 192.168.56.2, and in that Mint virtual machine I'll be using Dynamips and Dynagen configuration files to stimulate a router. So I'll be making two routers in that virtual machine. Install the Cisco IP communicator on my Windows 10 virtual machine. Moving on to my Linux Mint virtual machine now. I have already installed the Dynagen and Dynamips configuration packages. So the most basic and clear definition of Cisco Dynamips is that it's a Cisco router emulator. It's not a physical hardware router, it's a virtual emulator which can be configured in the Linux virtual machines or other operating systems, and it will be acting as a router or doing the functions that a Cisco router can perform. Now what Dynagen configuration file is doing is Dynagen is acting as a front end for managing Dynamips. So for Dynagen and Dynamips to work, for essentially Dynamips to work, we need the Dynagen configuration file as well. And yeah, so now we're going to install the Dynamips and Dynagen. So I've already installed those packages, so I don't have to do it again. Alright, I'm going to start with making a router directory where I'll be configuring the Dynagen config file. So make there a router. I made that directory now, change directory. Alright, now I have to work on my network interfaces configuration file where I'll be creating a bridge with the name of BR0. I'm gonna give it a static IP address with and in this case it would be 192.168.56.23. /24 net mask and 56.1 would be the gateway, which is the virtual network adapter on the VirtualBox. So the bridge port, this bridge port is my network adapter. That will be bridging my NIC. This adapter will be bridging with my BR0 virtual bridge that I'll be creating for the router to communicate with the virtual adapter, which is ENP0ST, and further this network adapter will be communicating with the two Windows virtual machine, which are my Cisco IP phones. This will ensure a seamless communication between all three. So bridge is very essential for this whole process to work. Now this script is perfect for the operation, for the beginning of the operation. Now I'm gonna save this. Save this. I'm gonna restart the networking services. Sudo networking service networking. Restart. Alright, so I have configured my bridge, and now if I run the ifconfig command, you can see that my bridge is present here. Alright, so moving on to configuring the routers, I would go into the Dynagen.conf file as we did earlier, and I'm gonna make a router 3 here. Already have made two routers, but now I want another two routers. So I'm going to name it router 4. I'm going to give the console port as 2524, tab 4, and my router 3 tab, giving it a tab 3, 2523 router 3. So to go into more details about the configuration we have here, the model means 7200 series of the Cisco router. The console port is 2523. We'll be using this for telnetting as well. This port, the fast Ethernet 0 port, is being connected to the tab 3 of the Mint virtual machine, and simultaneously the tab 3 is connected to the bridge 0 of the Mint virtual machine, and bridge virtual machine is connected to the NIC adapter of the Mint virtual machine. X and Y are the coordinates. We don't need to go into that much detail, but one thing we take away from this is the tab 3 for router 3 and tab 4 router 4. These are the virtual interfaces that are connecting the router with the Mint virtual machine and the Mint virtual machine with the Cisco IP phones. Let's save this. I'm going to run the start the Dynamips server. So Dynamips-h 2000. This command runs the Dynamips server in the background. So the and here is the background. Starts the Dynamips server in the background. Now we'll be able to use our Dynagen configuration files. Dynagen configurations because the Dynamips server is running in the background. So let's start with Dynagen configuration file. Now, since we started our Dynagen config file, let's start R3. R3 is started. Let's start R4. R4 is started as well. Console into the R3. We can console R4. Another very essential step in the whole operation of this lab will be, as I mentioned, we created two tabs, tab 3 for router 3 and tab 4 for router 4. So, at the moment, we have the bridge 0. Now, I want to add my tab 3 to the bridge 0, which means I want to add my network interface and connect it with the bridge 0 so that there can be a connection between the two, making the configured Dynagen server operate and connect through tab 1 with the bridge 0 in case of router 3 and in the case of router 4. So let's do that. Alright, my mistake, I wanted to add tab 3 and tab 4. Now I'm going to turn these up, bring these interfaces up. Let's bring tab 3 up and tab 4 up. Alright, we'll understand the significance of this more as we proceed further in the lab, but now let's console into our routers, the exciting part. Alright, to console or telnet into the router, I'm going to run the telnet localhost 2523, which is the console port which we gave during the configurations. We gave it the host name router 3 just for our ease of this management. Now we had added one interface with this FA00, as we know. Let's give it an IP address within the same range. Now the IP address for my interface would be in the same subnet as my virtual network interface, that is VMnet 0 and the VNet 0 in the virtual box, and the same subnet as the Cisco IP phones are in, that is the virtual machines, the two Windows virtual machines IP address. So I'm going to choose 05.56.6, subnet mask, no shut. I'm going to give it an IP address of one more than the R3, so 56.7. Oh, I forgot the subnet mask. No shut n. And the port is up. Now, as I mentioned, that we turned on the tab 3 and tab 4 to ensure the connection between the router and the Mint virtual machine. Let's see if that really worked. So I'm going to try to ping 192.168.56.1, which is our default gateway, and it works. We are ping 192.168.56.1. Yes, that is true in this case as well. Alright, now I'm going to start with configuring the router so that we can use it to connect to our Cisco IP communicator. So my router 3 will be connecting to virtual machine 2, that is VoIP phone 1 in this case. Alright, so let's start.
So first I'm going to register R3 with my phone 1, and I've configured the source address as I said and set up the telephony service. So even though we are 1 at the moment, but we're just gonna do it maxi phones 2 for now. IP source address, port router, how router is connected with Mint virtual machine 1000 or 2000 or config file. For now, I'm gonna register my phone with the router TFTP server to the route process. So the phone has registered with the router. We can see the syslog message here. The Max ePhone 1 has registered. Sorry, here the ePhone 1 has registered. We can see our system message here, and now we are going to do the same for router 4 and our another ePhone. So let's switch. I will explain the commands that we did on routers once again. So let's do my router 4. We have proper connectivity, so there's no issue there. Let's do the same commands here. Telephony service. Now we enter the configuration mode for the VoIP settings. Maxi phones 2. It can be one, whatever our needs are at the moment. So maxi phones 2. Number of ePhones are 2 now. IP source address will be the router's address 6.7 4000. 4000. Okay. Oh, we don't need the subnet mask, just the IP source address and the port. Max DN 25, Mac 25. Maximum directory numbers. It can be whatever, but at the moment we're doing it 25 just for practice. Now let's create the configuration files for the VoIP phones. Create CNF file. Alright, time to register our phone router. So at the moment, both our CIPC phones are registered with router. Now we want one of our below now. Now the ePhone 2 is also registered with router 4. So now let's get to the fun part. So now let's walk through some key commands that will set up our VoIP environment. I'm gonna start with router 3 first, setting up the phone 1, our first VoIP phone, which is on virtual machine 1. ePhone DN1. This represents the directory number, phone extension on the router. We are creating a directory number with the identifier 1. I'm going to give it a number of 7866. Then let's get into the phone now. ePhone 1, directory number is 1, so I'm going to get into the ePhone 1 configuration. Now a very important step is setting up the MAC address in our router for the VoIP phone. We'll see the MAC address here. MAC address here is 080. I can manually type this, or I can go up and see when my phone registered. It gave us this MAC address. Sorry, this is the VoIP phone we're working with. That is connected to router 3. When we'll go into network, we'll see that a similar MAC address, device name has been present. So let's copy this configuration address. Oh, a very silly mistake made here. To have dots in between the MAC address for the router to accept this. Yeah, of course. Right, a slight confusion. So this router is go. Very important directory number indicating button or dial peer. Plan on having my dial peer as 766. This will work. Destination pat 7 and 3 dots representing a red setup the route calls. The pattern that the router will match for incoming call. Calls starting with digit 7 will be matched by this dial peer destination pattern. The dial peer voice 78796 is a very important target where we'll set up the target IP address for our VoIP 68.56. Our router 4's IP at 6.7. Alright, I've configured router 4. A very important thing before we do that is start our, if we actually get these settings that we figured, right? So we can see that the settings that we configured are ePhone D and directory number 17866, and our button 1, which is this line 1, is up. And now we'll start configuring our router 4 and our phone 2. Same few changes along the way. Let's go into 1, this router 4, give it a number of 77966 toward 1. Our phone MAC address will go into pref here. Roll up. Do we see it? This is our MAC address here. Again, button 1. I want to use button. It can be any button, but button 1, go and ePhone 1. So this represents the ePhone 1, button 1. Dial peer. Let's make the dial peer router 3's VoIP phone on our dial peer. Destination path. Both are in the soft dots. Target or the IP address of router 3 192.168.56.6. Now let's start our phone. Restart settings apply. Alright then, we have configured the required settings for the operation phones. Now let's check if everything works. I'm gonna call from my phone 2 to phone 1 7866. Well, massive news, it works, everything works. Here, I mean, if we can call from one phone, we should be able to call from another, right? It works. See the notification here as well. Let's get a second look at our configurations. This is router 3, router 4. One very important thing before we close the routers is we save our configuration. So let's save our configuration. We dive into whatever's left. Have saved the configuration. Phones are working. We can show my running configuration. Dial peer 7966. The destination pattern. The IP address of my router 4. This is my DN's number. The destination pattern match starting IP source address. This is address of this router 3, port 2000. The MAC address of the phone. The same thing for router 4. Alright then, or anything I didn't go in detail. I will be honored to go and do so if you guys have a nice day.